Arran Pallan, good morning.
Good morning.
And welcome. Arran, you work as a professional stage manager in Coventry and Warwickshire and surrounding areas. And that's a career that stems from going to Woodlands School in Coventry. You're a Coventry kid, and you now work at the Belgrade, the professional theatre. And you've worked with doing stuff for the City of Culture year in Coventry, and you also work at the Albany, where our festival is between the 18th and 24th of July, and the conference, to which hopefully you'll be contributing. So just talk me through that journey from school. How did you get to where you are now?
So nice to be here. So I went through school thinking that I was going to be an actor, and went into drama and kind of thought that was the kind of way forward. And then when I got into my GCSE drama, I decided that acting wasn't for me anymore, but I always knew that I wanted to be within the theatre. I had a real good interest in theatre outside of school, so I would go watch a lot at the Belgrade. And I would always be very interested in actually what was happening behind the scenes. But there was no real information about actually how I would even go about what behind the scenes was. So I thought, director is it. That's what I'm going to be. I'm going to be a director. So I kind of went through my GCSEs thinking that I'd be a director kind of moving forward. And then I was like, actually, no, I don't really want to be that creative. But there is still something within theatre that I wanted to do. So my drama teacher, Craig Shelton, at the time, said to me that actually you'd be really good as a stage manager. You're organised, you're good at timekeeping. What about stage management? And that's kind of where my journey started, really, to kind of research what stage management was, what did they do, how do I get a career in there. So all the way through my A levels, that's kind of what I focused on, and then went off to Birmingham at the Royal Birmingham Conservatoire to study stage management, and I got a first class honours degree in stage management, and then been very fortunate to be working ever since in the local area. So my first job out of drama school was at the Belgrade Theatre, working with their Click Spring department on a range of shows. And it was a great experience, and one that I never thought when starting out in my school career that I would ever be a stage manager, and absolutely loving it now. And so glad that I actually found that route, that I could still be within the theatre, but on the other side, which is equally important to being on stage or off stage to get that show up and running.
So, kind of guide us. I mean, what does for the benefit of either the general public who just see the show from out front and never see what's going on behind the scenes, or for the benefit of actors who just swan around and showboat on stage and never really work out what's giving them their opportunity to be there in the limelight? What does, talk us through stage management?
So stage management, normally there's a three-person stage management team, and that entails a stage manager who oversees everything. So it's their responsibility to oversee the whole production. They'll schedule the production. They will also make sure that all the elements of that work. So for example, scenery, they'll try and track all of that, making sure that the cast are all fine. They understand where they're going. Everything backstage is safe. And then you have a deputy stage manager who normally calls the show. So every lighting, sound cue, any piece that moves, flying, anything like that, they will call the show from what is prompt corner, which is normally on stage left, and they will call from the script. So they will create a script. Normally people call it the Bible, where it has everything in there for the show. So they also have the blocking in the show from the rehearsal period. So every single move that the actor does, they will note that down. And then once they get into theatre and kind of technical rehearsals, they will then get cues off the designers, so lighting and sound designers, to ensure that they can then cue the show the way that the director, but also the designers want it. And then you also have an ASM who kind of assists the stage manager. So they are also on the floor backstage. And they look after kind of props and also help out with any scenery, but also will probably run the other wing. So if the stage manager's on the left wing, they will run the stage right wing, and making sure that all of that kind of is safe, that the actors can go walk through, scene changes can happen. So kind of in a nutshell, that's kind of very broad about what the kind of three elements of stage management are. They can differ from different shows, but also different scales of theatre, and also depends on budget sometimes as well. That there could be a hybrid between a stage manager on the book, for example. So actually, during the show, the stage manager will be calling the show, but during rehearsal periods and things like that, they're kind of doing all the health and safety elements of the show and look after the company. So it's kind of, there's no hard or fast rule, but there's kind of a general overview for you.
And what is it about it that that grabs you? And you obviously love what you do, which is just great to see, really. But what is it that inspires you, that drives you?
For me, it's about that organisation. So I am a very organised person. I love things to be in set orders. Kind of, what does that look like? How are we going to get from A to B? What are the schedules going to look like? I really enjoy working with a company of people who are very passionate about what they do, to be able to drive their vision to ensure that actually that show is the best possible way it can be. I predominantly work as a deputy stage manager, so I'm normally in the rehearsal room quite a lot, and I really like that relationship that you build with your cast, but also your director. You're kind of, when you're a deputy stage manager, the director's right-hand man or woman. So it's kind of really nice to build that relationship and have that journey to go through and kind of ensure whatever's coming out of that rehearsal room that goes into shows is all the way that the creatives of that show see it. And I really like that buzz that you get from doing that whole process, from the first read through in the rehearsal room, sitting round, to absolutely going to see it on the last performance, because actually that's such a big journey to go on, and actually you learn so much along the way. And for me, I always enjoy the fact that I'm always learning on the job. There is never a day where I'll be on this job and I think I know it all. The whole process of doing a show is a learning curve.
But I mean, it makes you kind of a rarity, doesn't it? I mean, you're in the I mean, from two points of view. I mean, for me, you speak on behalf of young people, and not many young people seem to find your route out of school into the theatre, and certainly few people, it seems to me, of a South Asian background make that journey. Why should that be?
I think there's two things here. For me, it's about that journey. How do you ensure that from a young age, or people are signposted to be able to go on that journey to want to be part of theatre? First of all, a lot of people see that as a hobby, not necessarily something that actually can be a career. And I think there's a lot of messaging and kind of work to be done within schools, but also extracurricular activities. So for example, I know a lot of people who go to dancing and things like that, but also within the city there's lots of like youth theatres and amateur groups, and actually how do we bridge that gap between actually this is just a hobby to actually go, well, there is a career at the end of this? And for me, I think the only way that will happen is, first of all, lived experience. So people who have actually gone through that journey from school right into doing it as a degree to then being a professional. And I think one of the things, if I should say, is a lot of people would say, it's really hard to get into this industry. You've got to be tough to get into it. But actually, if you work hard, yes, that is true. But equally, if you work hard and you're passionate, and there will be a few setbacks, of course there will, but that's kind of anything, you will be successful. And I think the stigma around kind of this is a really hard industry and actually you're not going to get anywhere puts a lot of people off. And for me, obviously, I'm quite biased towards the offstage workforce rather than the onstage workforce. And the reason why I think there's not many people that go through that journey the way that I did was because they don't know what it is. There is no kind of information or kind of signposting or knowledge about actually what happens off stage to create that show, because equally they are much more important than the actors, I would say personally, because if we didn't have the backstage workforce, then there's no show. Equally, if you don't have an onstage workforce, then there's no offstage. So actually, yes, it's equal. But for me, as being biased of offstage workforce, I would always say that we are key to the show. But in answer to your question, I guess, for me, to encourage more young people to be able to go on this journey, to be able to become a professional within our sector, I think there's a lot more work to be done in terms of workshops, but signposting, and also real life people coming in to talk about their lived experience of actually how someone who's probably was sitting in that class or whatever back in X number of years ago, went through that, and actually they've now come out the other side and they have got a successful career out of it. I think will be really inspiring to the younger generations to kind of go, actually, this is something that I can do, and I can turn my hobby into a real life job. And that's kind of what I did, is actually it doesn't feel like a job anymore because I'm basically doing my hobby and I really enjoy it.
Did you work with amateur groups such as the Criterion in Coventry or any others, as any kind of transition from school into a student, your degree and then the professional theatre, or did you just kind of make the move in one?
No, so whilst I was at school, as I said earlier, I still wanted to be an actor, so I joined the local amateur group, which was Coventry Youth Operatic Group, which is shortened for YOG. And I went there for a good number of years. I did a lot of their shows. And then kind of when I was transitioning and kind of from GCSEs to A levels, I kind of said to them, well, I really want to stay within the company, but is there any chance that I could just be backstage instead? I don't want to be on stage. My friends are still here. What can I do? And they were really open and welcoming to say, actually, yeah, Arran, absolutely. You're the first ever person that's probably going to be a junior within the company to then go to hop foot over to the other side and work backstage. And as well as YOG, there is a summer school within the city called Wingate Theatre, who for me really helped me, and if it wasn't for them, for that experience that I got over the summers of being able to be their deputy stage manager and call their shows, I don't think I would have been as experienced or knowledgeable to go to my next stage in my degree. So throughout my process of A levels, but also during my degree, when I had some downtime, I would always go back and support and be a part of the amateur groups within the city, and stage manage for them, because actually it was down to them that I got that knowledge and that experience to be able to learn more, to then feed that into my degree. So actually both of them kind of intertwined to each other. And if I didn't have one or the other, then actually I don't think I would have been as knowledgeable or experienced coming out of the other side to be in a professional career. And even after I graduated, I still did few bits and bobs for the amateur theatre community, because I always believe that actually that they gave me the opportunity, I should now give that back to them. So I still regularly help out with the communities within the city.
So you reached out really to the amateur community. You went and found them, but what should the amateur community be doing? And you've got experience, professional and amateur theatre. You bridge the two, as you bridge so many things in your life. What should the amateur community be doing? The Criterion and the Loft in Leamington and Priory and the Talisman in Kenilworth and Rugby and Nuneaton, what should they be doing to recruit for their amateur groups, for the hobbyists, more young people like you and more people, to use your phrase, who look like you?
Yeah, for me, I used to go to the Criterion quite a lot when I was a kid. Only reason why is the connection was for my drama teacher. My drama teacher was was performing at the Criterion, so I kind of went, I really want to come see the shows, and that's how I got into the Criterion. And for me, there's a lot of, and I go back to this circle again of signposting, and it's not, what I mean by signposting is not just kind of putting out an ad on social media or whatever like that. It's more targeted than that, going to the communities. So for example, identifying who you've already got in your within your community. So for example, the Criterion, let's say, who have you already got in there, identifying who that is, but who are you missing? Who are you not targeting? Is it because of the programming that you are doing within your theatres? Or is it that actually you are doing the right programming, but no one's coming forward? Because that's quite a lot of the time. You know, it is probably right to right audience, because casting can be whichever way you kind of, the director feels, I guess. But what is it that needs to be that next step? And for me, it's really about understanding why that community isn't coming. What are the barriers for them to come into? And it's an open dialogue. You know, we can't say, and I can't personally talk on behalf, and I never do talk on behalf of the whole of a community, for example, or a South Asian community, but equally to make people feel more welcome and willing and wanting to have an ownership, because actually that's what amateur communities are. They're about an ownership, wanting to be there, is having that open dialogue with those communities. So identifying within your city, your town, or wherever, that actually there is a South Asian community, especially in Coventry, there is a massive South Asian community, and going to reach out to them. What is it that would bring you to our theatre? Is it that actually we can open our theatre to you and you don't want to come and show for a bit, and you, I don't know, have your local meetings there, or a community day, and actually there's more of a dialogue to be had, is rather than both sides sitting back and kind of going, you know, they're not coming to us, let's leave it. Let's actively go. Let's kind of go there and kind of go, what can we do for you? But equally, what can you do for us? By having a diverse and inclusive community, we're going to be more well connected. There's going to be more things within the city. Each other can celebrate more within the city. On the plus side, for a business point of view, you get more ticket sales, you know? So it's kind of, and more people through the doors, more people experiencing the great work that happens at these venues like the Criterion. Is brilliant to for anyone, both on stage or off stage, and having the opportunity to be able to do, I don't know, props one show and actually be on stage the next. You get that whole round experience of being and working in every single department, and to a high standard. And for me, it's about understanding why and what those barriers are. And it's a massive piece of work. It's never going to happen overnight. But it is about understanding who we currently have, identifying that, and who do we want to reach, but also making sure that that is a place for example, why aren't younger members of the community coming to the Criterion or any theatre within the city? Well, is it because actually they don't know about it simply, or their friends aren't going? For me personally, I only went to those community groups because my friends were there and I was there for the social. And actually, what is that links? And actually, it just happened to be that I wanted them to pursue that as a career. So there's a lot of work, and I don't think there's a one size fits all, if I'm honest. It's very unique to each venue and each area. But I guess it's also working out who the best person is to go to approach these people. Because no disrespect, but who would want to get a budding young community youth group together? Who do you need to get to attract those people? And what does it need to be like? And so if you want someone, you want a diverse kind of group, then actually you'll send a few people out, people who look similar to the younger members. So actually they look and see themselves represented, but equally you want someone who understands how that group works, and kind of, I guess it's also the lingo, isn't it? You can't be talking theatre language to people who probably don't understand it, and I'm very guilty of that. Trying to talk to people who don't really understand theatre. You can go stage left or stage right, and they just go straight over their head. It's kind of going back to basics and kind of go, this is the plain simple English of what it is, and let's build from there, because it is for everyone, and it doesn't matter how little or a lot you know.
And so you founded the Alliance of Coventry Theatre Societies, which acts. There's a coincidence. So tell me about that, and tell me what it is and what it does, and when you started it, and all that kind of stuff.
Sure. So the Alliance of Coventry Theatre Societies, ACTS, was a venture that I've always wanted to do. So ever since finishing my degree, I kind of was like, this is my time to give back. But I was too focused on my career, if I'm honest, to try and get that sorted. But I also wanted to make it and kind of make sure that it was right and meaningful. I didn't want to just create some kind of organization which wasn't right or meaningful and didn't have the level of input from the community, from those people who currently serve and are active within that community. Because it's all about giving people a voice, ensuring that the community collaborate together, are more connected, and information sharing. I founded the Alliance, I kind of decided that I would put it together because I had the time during lockdown. We had the time. What else could I do? And I thought, now is a real meaningful time to kind of put this together, have some lead up time where I can really think about what those processes are. What does this mean for the city? And how do we action this to ensure that actually it's more sustainable and to have the benefits that we wanted to have? So back in June 2020, I kind of started this journey, and I didn't take it lightly. I did lots of research about what went before ACTS and what's happening within the current world and things like that. And there was two main things for me. One was to be more collaborative with each other, because actually amateur community organizations are always in their own little world, trying to just bog down and get their stuff together for their next show. That is their plain and simple aim. Let's just do the next show. Once that show's done, let's do the next one. And actually there's lots of information sharing to be done there, and there's lots to learn from each other, and that cross-pollination between adult and youth organizations coming together. I think there's something really nice about knowing that all the organizations within the city are talking. They're having that dialogue. I'm not saying they need to be in each other's hands, each other's pockets, sorry, absolutely not. But what I'm saying is actually to be in that same room, to know what's going on. For a practical point of view, it's great to know for programming. So actually two people don't do the same show in the same year. But equally, it's good to know this person did this show this many years ago. What did they do? What did they learn from it? So that's kind of the information collaborative side of things that I founded ACTS on. But also something that also we touched upon just a minute ago is the diversity and inclusion element of it, which was something where I felt that I could give back to the community within Coventry and Warwickshire and share my knowledge about the diversity and inclusion. A lot of people steer away from it because there's a fear of getting it wrong. And actually, I wanted to create a safe space where these organisations could come along and kind of say, I really don't know, but I really want to make a change and help and move forward. And that's kind of the two things that I kind of founded ACTS on, to try and then move forward. And once I kind of had my grounding in terms of what the aims are, I kind of reached out to organisations who I knew had personal connections with, because it's really paramount to me that actually I gave back to these organisations who gave me the opportunity to where I was. And so I reached out to the organisations and kind of said, this is my plan. I kind of gave them a business plan and said, this is what I want to do. What do you think? And then we tried to steer it together. We had lots of kind of developments of it. It's kind of like a rehearsal room, if I'm honest. We were putting on a new show and we were trying to work out and devising this thing, which had at the heart of it the community. It's not about me, it's not about the people who run these societies, it's about the community, who those people serve. We serve the amateur theatre community within Coventry and Warwickshire, and that is, I guess, our catchphrase, because I'm really keen about actually ensuring that there is the infrastructure in place to be more sustainable. So ensuring that actually, God forbid that anything happens to any of the committees or anything like that, people allowing more room for younger voices, more people and people from underrepresented groups to be a voice within that room, and ensuring that people can be empowered to have that voice, no matter what, if you've been in the society for 60 years or this is your first show. Everyone should feel equal and have a voice and be able to feel like they can contribute. So as time went on, I was very scared to launch the Alliance. And in February of this year, I burnt the bullet and was like, I'm just going to launch it. And that's what I did. And it had a brilliant response. We have 9 members, different organisations across the city. So the Criterion is part of one of them. The Priory, YOG, who I kind of started my journey off with, Wingit, Coventry Musical Theatre Society, and there's lots of different genres within that, within acts now, which is really nice. And it's really nice to see that actually organisations coming together who share that one passion of putting on a show, but equally, how do we come together as a collective and move forward in times which are hard in COVID? You know, we were all kind of sheltered and actually kind of dealing through COVID together, but equally as separate organisations. And then how do we move towards the future, and what does that future look like for our community? And diversity and inclusion is one of them, but equally lots of other exciting stuff as well coming soon.
And I guess that I know you're working. I saw you working at the Albany a couple of weeks ago, and you're working at the Belgrade, and more City of Culture stuff coming up in the pipeline for you, and more of that.
Yeah, so I'm doing a lot of work with the theatres within the city, but also the Trust. So in August of this year, working on a community festival for the amateur theatre communities within the city, as part of City of Culture and the Albany Theatre, where I'll be production managing that across different weekends in August. So it's quite nice to kind of bridge that gap still between my professional career and something that I'm really passionate about. And yeah, as we move through the year, there's more exciting projects with City of Culture, but also with the Belgrade as well. So keeping my hand in with both and ensuring that actually I get as much out of City of Culture as anyone else as well, and ensure that actually I get all the benefits from that year of great culture within our city.
Well, I think that, Arran, that you are a professional stage manager, but you're also a brilliant bridge builder. I mean, that's kind of that's what you do, isn't it? Really, that's what you do. And Coventry and indeed the world needs more people like you. So, thank you.
Thank you.